Hello everybody, welcome back to Lozy PC and welcome back to War in the Pacific versus Invictus. So, after the last turn and our little bit of a surprise at the Philippines with his PT boats, we are going to have to kind of not completely rethink but be a little bit more careful with our plans and kind of how we're reacting to things. That kind of made me aware that I can't be overtly boisterous in what I'm doing. The problem is, I do have to as Japan. It is something that is really, really key. Now, what we're seeing here is the kind of usual stuff that has been going on, and this is something that we are going to deal with, or at least attempt to deal with, pretty soon. We also try our best to attack some US destroyers, but unfortunately we miss. And the US destroyers are onto us like a flash. There is a lot of ships here, and we don't actually have too many submarines here at the moment, although I think in the future we might put a few more out there and cause more problems, see what we can kind of try and sink. Again, just like with us, the American submarines are trying to hit our actual destroyers. There is an attack here on both sides of warships themselves, which obviously, if that comes off, it's a pretty good trade. Submarines are fairly common for both sides, and sinking something like a destroyer, or even if you're lucky enough to hit a cruiser or something, that'll be really good. So apologies for that little quick blackout there. It was me making a slight mistake with my buttons. So, the cruiser and destroyer unit that we sent to chase down the PT boats did indeed find them, but unfortunately no hits, which was rather frustrating. But at least they have found them, and hopefully we can kind of keep on top of them and make sure that they don't cause us any other problems. Maybe, sinking them if they attack us. And again, we see that the Sturgeon there just attempted to sink another warship, another destroyer, but not much happened. Now, something that I haven't done this turn, but I think is something that we might need to do, is keep an eye on our captains of our patrol boats and our destroyers, our anti-submarine captains. Because the reason why, they give up or they kind of stop searching for the submarines isn't always because they've lost them. It's to do with their aggressiveness. So, for example, a captain with more aggressiveness is going to attempt to keep on top of a submarine. Now, this is something interesting. This is an older US submarine attacking on the surface of our one of our boats. But what happens is it gets one hit off, and then our transport ship fires back. It has one hell of a hit because it knocks out the main gun of that submarine, kind of rendering it useless to fight with that gun. So I'm pretty happy that AKL managed to do that. And one hit from a submarine, yeah, it's going to have a bit of a hole in it, but it should be okay, and should get to wherever it needs to be. So we move on to day, which is always a little bit quicker. We have patrol boats trying to find some US submarines in the Luzon Gap, between Formosa, Hong Kong, and Luzon Island in the Philippines. This is where I imagine this and Saigon and Indochina is where the submarines of the Americans are going to be the most. Particularly early on, we will be moving troops and stuff around, and obviously we will be moving oil and fuel back once we try and secure the Dutch East Indies, particularly places such as Palembang and Sumatra. Sumatra as well. My mind went blank for a moment there. So again, more kind of submarines being kind of spotted and trying to be attacked, but not really too much going on there, so that's kind of useful. Recon planes are kind of spotting things as we go out. There seems to be again a load of ships in just off Borneo, which kind of is raising my eyebrows a little bit. Nothing too much, but something to be a little bit weary of. So yeah, and we do have a lot of bad weather, so we don't have too many raids, although we do have a pretty large raid from some Bettys and some Nels here on the retreating forces from Cotabato. So we managed to get a couple of casualties and a couple of Betty's damage, but nothing too significant, which is always good. And this is our raid on the more significant Hong Kong. Again, a few casualties, which is good. The new height of 8,000 meters, or 8,000 feet rather, is actually kind of doing pretty well, as we can see with that raid in Tavoy there. So I'm pretty happy with these 8,000 feet raids. Obviously, not all of them are super successful, and that's fine. You know, you don't have to have all of them being, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people being killed every, you know, turn, or hundreds of casualties. But, you know, at least it's kind of keeping that pressure on. It is causing extra casualties, which, you know, is just going to be kind of useful for us. And in fact, when we look at the Battle of Nanchang, we see how much that has actually changed things. So, you know, the assault values of the Chinese have been dented quite significantly through their attacks the day before, as well as, I would say, the bombing raid in which we managed to do yesterday. So when I say yesterday, obviously the upload schedule is kind of, you know, every couple of days or as we get turns. And obviously I would like to thank everyone for their support on this new series. It seems to be doing pretty well, so that's always amazing. I will give this opportunity just to mention that if you wish to join us on Discord, please click the link down below. There is a link in the description. So go and join us on Discord, and then when we do our single player game, you'll get a little notification of when we go live. So we see that there's some attacks going along, particularly by anti-submarine aircraft. So again, keeping an eye on that and hoping that we don't end up losing, you know, too many submarines from aircraft, because that's never good. So again, Battle of Nanchang, we get some more Sonyas this time over the top of the Chinese, cause some casualties. Again, not loads, but still a decent amount. You know, just keeping that ticking over, which is our aim. You know, kind of almost at the same time causes some suppression, if anything. Again, US submarine trying to attack a destroyer. Bold. So yeah, and as we can see, there is so many destroyers out here around Pearl Harbor. Invictus is really trying to find these subs. There isn't too many, and it kind of does make me wonder. I am going to send more there, but it does make me wonder what to do. But before we talk about that, we can see here that if we look at the Battle of Nanchang, before today, I believe that the Chinese had much higher assault values than us overall. Now when we look at it, the Chinese assault values are way down. In fact, ours might even be higher than that. Our bombardment of Hong Kong, pretty solid, which is good. And our paradrop deeper into the Philippines. Again, uncontested at the moment, but importantly, it allows us to move our troops through quicker. They don't have to stop, capture a territory, then move forward. So they're doing pretty good, and hopefully, again, that puts pressure on Invictus. And I'm kind of curious to see what his plans are here, because he could either try and hold Manila or evacuate Manila and hold Bataan, which is what the Americans did in real life. They obviously did fight a bit for Manila, but they did give it up and try and hold Bataan. Now, Bataan actually kind of works out a bit better for him, because what that would mean is with shipping, I can't get them through, because Bataan covers the entrance into Manila and it's going to make it difficult. So I would have to use the smaller ports to try and, you know, get supplies and resources to my troops. Now, we're setting up some deliberate attacks around in China and some bombard attacks just kind of south of Xinjiang and north of Hankow. And we noticed that the rest of the 6th Army has arrived in the north, so that is useful. So what we will do here is we will kind of start getting ready to kind of attack the two cities of Luoyang and Chengchao. We'll cross the river south of Chengchao, and then we will attempt our best to attack into Chengchao, avoiding the shock attack, you know, malice that we have if we attack Chengchao from over the river, because it's a city, it's in hills, it's going to be tough. So we want to try to give ourselves as even a playing field as possible. So that's why we're going to make sure with Chengchao we try and cross that river first. So what we are doing here is something, again, quite significant, and something that, you know, I've been advised by some people to maybe suggest, so thank you for those who have commented, and that is setting up anti-submarine patrols with my bombers, particularly the Nels. We don't have loads of targets of opportunity that aren't being hit by something else at the moment. I'm still a bit weary of Clark Field, despite the fact that our sweeping zeros, they haven't really picked stuff up. I don't know if that's because Invictus is keeping his aircraft grounded, or if we've managed to damage enough that they're not really flying. So we'll again give it a couple of turns. He doesn't really have close air support in Clark Field, so it shouldn't affect our infantry and our tanks moving forward. What we are more worried about, obviously, is losing planes as our industry builds up to accommodate that. So the two kind of key areas we're covering here were the South China Sea around Saigon and Vietnam, as well as that Luzon gap or strait that we were talking about, making sure that if there's any submarines in there, our pilots, who they do have naval bombing, which is different to being able to find submarines slightly, should hopefully find something and move on from there. Expanding some ports and airfields around in Malaya as well. Just kind of keeping an eye on what we've got here, and I noticed that there is a recon and a naval search in the form of Mavises that are sat in an airfield that has no aviation support. This is bad because what will end up happening is over time they will not be able to use their aircraft, and it will be a nightmare to move them. So we get them moved as quickly as we can. Before that happens, we'll move them south to Kota Baru, and the map is going to do its weird thing where it's going to jump right down to the bottom of the screen. Don't know why, but hey, that's what it decided to do. So we're going to put these on a little bit of anti-submarine warfare as well, and again we're going to select on the map, although the way the map has kind of worked here, it's a little bit awkward, but these are going to kind of shoot out from Kota Baru to try and see what is there around Saigon, etc. And we can see that there is 2 submarines right on top of Kota Baru. It's clear that Invictus knows that this is our port in Malaya so far, and he is probably trying to blockade it. So again, trying to use aircraft, Bettys, Nels, Mavises to deal with them is the hope. So hopefully there'll be enough aircraft doing this that we'll at least get a couple of damaged submarines, and who knows, maybe we can sink 1 or 2. So once that is done, we kind of have a bit of a look around and check various little things such as aviation support, torpedoes, so that we can use them if needs be, and then we go to check Hong Kong, make sure everything's good, which it is, and we're just going to come to the south and head towards Truk, because I'm debating, do we launch these invasions? And I finally decided to try and find where Lobrum is. Now, here's a fun one. Lobrum isn't in the base finders. There is a Loblum, but not Lobrum. So again, I'm kind of looking through here, trying to find it, and I'm thinking it's LON something, but I can't see it. Let me just double check the name. So hover over, click the wrong button. That's not where I'm going to find a name. Now look and go, okay, Lobrum. Okay, so bases, all bases, come down, and we come right the way down. KL. Okay, that's A. So scroll down, KLALO, Long Island. And then I'm like, okay, there's Loblem. And then I'm kind of thinking, this seems a bit too far deep for where we're planning. These are the Flores Islands, and that seems a bit deep compared to the rest of them that are kind of along the northern shore of New Guinea. So I raise my eyebrows, and I'm kind of like, odd. So we kind of leave them. Again, was debating whether or not we're going to launch these, but I decided against it. And the reason being is I feel like the bases on the northern shores of New Guinea are not overtly significant. The most significant ones are the ones that are around Lae, etc., Buna, and so on. That gives us a jumping off point on land to deal with the with Port Moresby, which is going to be my plan. It is going to take time, which is a bit of a nightmare, and it does mean that the Americans and the Australians might get more troops there, but I would rather go over land than try and use the Navy. The reason being is I have a feeling that there is going to be far, far, far too much American presence down there in Port Moresby. That doesn't mean we're doing it unsupported with the Navy. The plan is hopefully deal with the Philippines as quickly as we can, then send most of those divisions from the Philippines down into the New Guinea. Smaller units, some of the naval units in the Philippines take the rest of the islands and help take the Dutch East Indies. And the units from Malaya, half of them are going to go back up north to Rangoon and try and take Burma, and the other half are going to take Sumatra and Batavia. So that is my kind of long-term plan for what we're going to do with our units. So what I'm just doing here is just kind of loading the units that are going to take the island of Mindanao. I realize that we don't actually have enough ships, so what we're going to do is we're going to load a couple of units. I think I'm going to load, if I remember rightly, the SNLF and the 146 Infantry Regiment. We'll come back for the Mura detachment, and these guys, as I say, are going to land on at Davao and try and capture the island of Mindanao to try and prevent, again, more submarine bases, more bases being accessible to Invictus. And again, in a way, the delay from myself, I'm hoping it's going to slightly catch him off guard. Maybe he thinks I've forgotten about this. Maybe he thinks I'm focusing elsewhere. It's a risk, and this is where the kind of, the boisterousness does have to come in as Japan, but at the same time, I don't want to, waste units. I have done that previously in, with OCB as a kind of fun game. And that's probably worse. So we're kind of keeping an eye on stuff and seeing how things go. Now, the units at Legazpi are now finished offloading, and I'm just checking that they're on the move, which they are, so that's good. So they'll be marching up to the north. And this is where we can see that our troops are moving quickly down Luzon. We're going to move the Yokosuka 1st SNLF to join their fellow paratroopers. They will go and help secure our push towards Manila, and I'm just keeping an eye on these units, these zeros that should be sweeping, because again, because we haven't really been dealing with the sweeps from the Warhawks, etc. I was just a little bit worried. What we're also going to do is we're going to move a recon unit down onto Apari, just to keep even better sight of what's going on Clark Field. I want to know what is there. Does he have his fighters? Or has he moved them? What units has he got at Clark Field? Is it being defended? Once we've done kind of Clark Field, we'll look at Manila and we'll look at Bataan. Again, trying to understand what we need to do. Here, I'm just going to move a couple of the computer-controlled submarines. This was my mistake. I forgot to accidentally unset them before, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself there, heading down to Rabaul. We don't have that yet, although again, that is going to be a target very, very soon. We want Rabaul, we want the region around it, New Britain and the Shortlands. Again, that's a major base that will be useful for us, both air and naval. So Rabaul needs to be something we take, and again, I think this is the common theme of this episode, and again, once we take Rabaul, it gives us that port from which we can launch the attacks on Moresby, in which we can kind of secure our shipping. The only problem is Rabaul doesn't have a repair shipyard, and that is a bit of a nightmare. There is an ARD, which is a repair dockyard in Truk, which we might move down and give ourselves a bit more support, plus moving some of the naval command units, which will give us extra extra naval support, which should help. But yeah, it's one of those things that we need to kind of keep an eye on. So what we're doing here is we're loading a construction and a naval battalion, an Air Force battalion, just to go down to assist at Apari, because we realized there wasn't enough aviation support there for the zeros, so we'll get some more units down there. And I realise we have some nates here that I haven't actually talked about or touched, so they're going to go on training completely. And we're just kind of keeping an eye on what else we've kind of got around. We've got the Sasebo first at 7 left, which we will need to move off there and go get it to do something more useful. So we are going to set it this time for Baklapan or Balikpapan. Again, one of the major oil producing areas of the Dutch East Indies. So, pretty much sorted. We have a look at the signal intelligence report, which is terrible for Japan, because one thing it mentions is there's lots of radio transmissions at Pearl Harbor. Yeah, that's expected. So what we also do here is we just have a little look at our industry, and I can't remember if we're building any shipyards, which we're not, both naval or merchant, so that's all fine. And then we're going to have a look at our research and development air production. So we can see that the Frank in Tokyo, their factories are building, the Helens are researching, the new Zeros with floats are researching. So the things that we want to build is going pretty well, and we check the building of our actual stuff. We have Sonya's there at Gifu, as well as Kate's being built at Hiroshima. So far, they're all pretty solid. Everything is building as we want to, the Sallies as well. Although, what I do just realise is I'm thinking, wait a minute, the Sonyas haven't been building. Why is that? It's because Gifu doesn't have 10,000 supply. When you build new factories, they actually count as repairing new factories, and to do repairing, you need at least 10,000 supply. So we make sure that's that, and that's going to be it. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for yet another turn. Please do hit that like and subscribe button if you have enjoyed, and we'll be back soon with another one. Cheers. Bye.